Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. It's been a pretty interesting week in EVE. We have more and more stuff coming to CC, like the engineering complexes, which seem to be working alright at the moment. I'm mostly looking forward to the new player experience. We also have the Orca Roar call changes that still need to drop, so for 2 full weeks before the expansion, a little bit more than that, but let's count 2 weeks. Yeah, there is still a lot of new stuff that will be coming in our direction. On TQ, I've been doing some more preparations, some selling actually. I sold a couple of plex. And of course, I'm also focusing on the Crimson Harvest, trying to get some skins and keep the boosters going for the extra skill points that you're getting. So it's been pretty damn fun. And let's take a look at the market. You can see from the ticker that some stuff has moved quite decently. So as always, we will get started with plex right here. It's going to be at 1 minute, 100, writing that down. And you can see that plex have gone up decently, nicely, around 5%, I think it was. 1,247,000,000 for the sellers, 1,193,000,000 for the buyers, so almost 1.2 billion for the buyers. It's quite significant. On the chart, we can also obviously see that the prices are going up. Now, a tip I got during the last EVE talk that's pretty nice is with the mouse wheel, you can increase the scale. What I'm not sure of is, yeah, so there is a limit. I wish I could somehow downscale. What does this do? Oh, that resets the scale. All right. But you can increase the scale a little bit with your middle mouse button, which can be handy for very flat charts. Of course, in plex, it's not too difficult to see. We are going up to an all-time high point, I think, at 1.21 billion almost. I watched EVE Prosper yesterday, and he's expecting 1.3 to even 1.35 billion to be a possible top. I have to be honest, I've been selling a couple of them because I managed to sell them for 1.247, something like that. And at 1.3, I'm definitely pulling the trigger pretty hardcore on the sales of my remaining plex. I've got 15 left. I think I sold 3 of them or something like that. But at ever increasing prices, as you can see, at the moment we are going up substantially, and I think he may be right on the 1.35 may be a little bit high, I think, but in 2 weeks, a bit more than that, the expansion is going to hit. If there are enough new alpha pilots coming into the game with some good with a good trailer and some good commercial efforts from CCP, this could drive the price of plex up quite substantially in the weeks after the expansion. So I'm going to be curious to see what it does exactly. My aim is 1.3 billion. Then I'm definitely making profit on all the plexes that I'm selling. And after that, I think I'll be waiting for another buy opportunity. So here we go. That's basically the state, 1.2 billion at the moment. You can sell for 1.25 billion pretty much very easily from my experience. And you can also see here on the chart that we're actually at a pretty high point after a low point through the summer. The multiple pilot training certificate, that's going to be pretty damn similar. Yeah. Settling at 1.22 billion, high point 123. And this is a little bit better for the chart. Look at that. So you can obviously see that after a little bit of hesitation, but that's still after the summer, we went up. Oh no, that's not after the summer actually. After a little bit of hesitation here, that's pretty strange. What are these data points? 1.14 and 1.17, back down to 1.12. Well, it's not as drastic as what this makes it look, so maybe something like this is a bit more accurate. We are up in tandem with plex on these. Of course, the volumes are quite different, something like 30, 20, 30, or even 10 of them on a bad day are the current volumes for the multiple pilot training certificate. That is probably because there's very little reason to use these over a plex. The body resculpt certificate next, also on the way up, of course. We can improve the scale a little bit of that. You can see we're now at a high point of 310 million. The absolute high point was a median daily price of 330 million. Not bad, but yeah, moving in tandem with plex pretty obviously. What we can see here though is that it's completely different. On the bottom part You can see that plex was very high for a long time, and then through the summer we had a low point, and now we're back to a high point. So this is the yearly plex move that used to be the case every single year on expansions. It wasn't for a couple of years previous to this one, when CCP actually came with the 4 weekly releases, and a bit before that in fact, but it seems to be back this year in pretty strong force, because you obviously have a high point last year, early last year, then you had a summer slump, and now again we're coming at a high point as the new expansion approaches. But the body resculpt, you can see some volatility, some hesitation, more low points even early last year. So it is its own market, but now here in the end, in the last month or so, since the summer, basically it has been forced up under pressure from the plex increasing in price so much. Skill extractors next could be interesting as well. So this is actually the exact same chart as plexes, but the reason it looks like it's an earlier bottom is because the skill extractors don't exist for more than a year yet. But here again, if we can go for a bit more a bit of a lower scale, we can see that we are going up just like plexes, and at the moment they're going for 290 million, pretty much 300 million. Pretty damn good. Sellers 288 million, and buyers are at 277 million. Skill injectors could be a bit more interesting. Let's see what these are doing. Going up as well, so that is expected. But you can see that its behavior has been a little bit different from skill extractors and from plexes, with actually a high point just a couple of months ago, which is going to be summer, right? High point here, yeah. In July we actually had a high point, then a very low point in September, and back up here at the moment. So if I go back for the 1 month view, pretty much something like that, we can see that increasing the scale. We are decently high at the moment, at 620 million. 5-day moving average is on its way up. The difference between the 5-day and the 20-day moving average is going up as well, which I think means that it has some momentum on the way up, but it's also not just a uniform picture, because sometimes you have pretty high data points here, and then you hesitate a little bit, and then we're on the way back up. But yeah, in the last few weeks, obviously, skill injectors have been going up in price quite substantially. Sellers are at 634 million, and the buyers are at 600 million flat. That's only one. Then it's actually 580 million. So quite interestingly, we do have a pretty wide spread between sellers and buyers of skill injectors. And despite that, volumes, that's interesting. Maybe I should go for a longer chart. Yeah, volumes seem to be dropping a little bit. We're still talking 4,800, 5,500 units, so somewhere around 5,000. This is probably an anomaly, but it seems to be a little bit lower than what we had before. Well, actually, it looks decently alright. Just in the last week or so, I am seeing a slightly lower volumes, a bit of pressure on that. But yeah, skill injector market, this was a great buy opportunity, of course, when it decreased so substantially down to towards 560 million. I said that you could buy at that time. I didn't myself because I needed the ISK for the upcoming blueprints, but would have been a pretty good buy here. Anything below 580 million, absolute no-brainer. Anything below 600 million, well, you're making some profits if you manage to sell it on the sell orders, but here the buyers obviously want to see skill injectors quite a bit lower. Moving on to some minerals next. That's going to be at 9 minutes and 10 seconds. All right. We'll start as always with titanium. Oh, it actually remembered. That's very nice. It actually remembered the setting. No, not entirely. Damn. All right, so let's put that at 6 months like this. Think here about, yeah. So this is now 6 months for titanium, which is how we used to look at it. And you can see that we again have a bit of a summer slump here, but here since September, we're basically flat around 6.2 ISK. Or 6 ISK around there. 603 for the buyers, 623 for the sellers. When it comes to volumes, we do see 1.8 billion units being bought whereas the sellers are coming in with 125 million, 134 million, 34 million. So quite a little bit less. Demand is still pretty strong, although it comes from a single order. And so as a result here, we are basically decently flat with potential for titanium to go up a little bit. It is of course also possible that, no, actually, we are coming from a higher point than today. So you would think that there has been a lot of supply, but we're not seeing that. So I'm actually reading this as very likely for titanium to stay flat in the current trade range, but I think it's also entirely possible that we'll go up a little bit because there seems to be more demand. If we go back for the 1 month chart, let's try to put some volume in it. Yeah, you can basically see the flat chart here just below or just above 6 ISK. Let's put it back on the 6 months and then let's see what happens if I click on pyrite. Load it up for 6 months. Very nice. All right, if this has been something like a bit of a ninja update, it's very welcome, because this is going to help ETH talk tremendously. I can still do stuff with the scale if I need to, but for pyrite it looks really good. You can see 6 months ago that the summer slump started. Unfortunately, pyrite has not recovered from this low position and is still playing with 6 months lows here at around 8 ISK on the chart, starting well above 10, which I think 9 to 10, between 9.5 and 10 ISK is definitely a possible sell price for pyrite if minerals make a little bit of a comeback. So here it's pretty obvious we're in a pretty bad situation for pyrite. The question is it on low supply or low demand? Demand seems to be pretty good. 500 million here, 147 million is a couple of days ago. Sellers 185 million, 150 million, 132 here. So I would say slight edge to demand at the moment. We may be going up a little bit, but it's been like that for quite a while, and as you can see, the pressure is still very strong for minerals at the moment to go low, to go to a 6 month low. So pyrite, personally, I would hold on to it. If you want to buy some of it, be very careful, because of course there are mining changes that are going to come with the next expansion, and it's very difficult to gauge what the net impact of those changes are going to be. Although I think that, personally, I think that high-sec minerals may be okay, because the one Orca boosting an entire system is going away, and the Orca isn't becoming a super miner like the Rorcal potentially can be. For the null-sec minerals, I think it's going to be very risky to actually invest in that. But for high-sec minerals, it's a bit of a gamble, but you may want to take it in a very small fashion. I wouldn't put all my ISK in these high-sec minerals that are at 6 month low, but some of it may be a good idea. So here is pyrite not looking too good. Mexalon should be okay. Yeah, it's actually keeping the 6 month chart. Very nice. So we can see that Mexalon has actually had a very strong summer, despite all the other high-sec minerals having a very weak summer. So that managed to stay at around the 72-74 ISK price range. In August, unfortunately, under pressure from all the other high-sec minerals, so many people started to move towards Mexalon, the only one that was making them decent money, that it eventually came under pressure to a low point of only 64 ISK or something like that. Could have gone lower, so the damage was actually limited. And now in the last few months, especially in the last few weeks, we're actually going back up a little bit, ending at around 70 ISK, which is a pretty good price for Mexalon. Definitely sell worthy in my opinion, 70 ISK. 71 here just a couple of days ago, but the 5-day moving average is pretty obviously going up. So here, this is very strange. Of course, you can see for the 1 year Mexalon chart that we actually had a weak pre-summer. Then through the summer we had a very strong period, which all the other high-sec minerals did not. And then we had a bit of a slump, but we're actually recovering already towards the expansion. So this point here, 60, 61 ISK, was actually a nice buy opportunity a couple of months ago. And if I go for the sellers and the buyers, that could be interesting. Sellers, as you can see, we're lacking supply for Mexalon, 73.37 for the sellers. Buyers are at 67.10. People want to buy 170 million, 46 million units, 50 million units here. That's from a couple of days ago. But the sellers, nothing in the last 24 hours. I think someone must have cleaned up house here, bought everything below this price range. And as a result, yeah, Mexalon is going up in price. In fact, 73 ISK is right back where we were last summer. So good time to be selling off some Mexalon if you're in need of some liquid ISK. Here am I seeing here is a pretty big volume spike, 1.35 billion units, but this is 1.6 billion units, 770 million units. So this probably triggered this increase, and then to my surprise I think we're up for another pretty interesting day in Mexalon. The potential of that seems to obviously be on the high point. I may actually move some Mexalon from my reserves and then turn that into fuel or something like that, because I still need some extra fuel to be ready for the engineering complexes. So Isogen next. Let's take a look at this one. It's staying on 6 months. That's so good. Thank you, CCP. I'm not sure if someone actually watched Eve Talk and said, yeah, maybe we can easily fix that, but that's absolutely awesome that it is now staying on the scale that I've said before. So Isogen trying to crawl out of the hole at around 83 ISK. That was a bottom, obviously, throughout September, trying to crawl out of it, but it's very, very timid here. 81 ISK on the current day of trading. On average, 84, 85 is still pretty damn low. You should be able to sell Isogen for 100 ISK or more. So on supply side, still coming in 2.7 million, 1.7 million. Here we've got another 5 and 6 million units coming in. Demand not that high, 12 million, 22 million, 12 million here. Those are in fact more than a week old, and people are trying to actually buy Isogen for less or just around 80 ISK, which is very, very cheap. Still a decent spread here as well, 84 ISK for the sellers, 80 ISK for the buyers, which is like around 5%. So it's not a good time for Isogen. I'm still holding on to mine, and in fact, in my opinion, it's almost better to just not sell, wait for the engineering complexes, try to turn that into stuff that would sell at a bit of a premium, rather than to just decide to, all right, I'm getting out of the market. It's going to take too long for Isogen to come back or something like that. So I wouldn't pull the trigger on all my minerals just yet. A bit of a good war and some nice production can actually still turn this very low value Isogen into a decent amount of ISK without having to take the losses. Excuse me. But yeah, Isogen at the moment pretty damn low, trying to come back a little bit, but it's really not managing to do so very well. Next up we've got Noxium. Awesome that it keeps the scale coming back a little bit, but this is really here 380 ISK on a medium daily average is all-time low, never seen before. So Noxium took a real beating from the mineral rebalance patch. Even this trade range of around 460 ISK, as you can see from the 1 year chart, was pretty low, although average for the last year or so since the rebalancing. But through the summer here, September again, we went to a very, very low point, less than 400 ISK. That was pretty crazy for Noxium, and now we're basically recovering from that just a little bit on slightly higher volumes. I personally think that these are more opportunistic buys from people that wanted to invest in Noxium when they could buy it close to 400 ISK. That was extremely cheap, and as you can see now, the buyers have gone up a little bit to 435 ISK, sellers at 460 ISK. It's still not great value, but at least it came back a little bit. And so I think from this point out, considering this entire 1 year chart, we can start looking at Noxium as having found its current trade range, which is extremely low at 450 ISK. But if something were to happen, like let's say a big Nosek war or something like that, there is a chance that Noxium could see a bit of a comeback. But there is a really big but. Noxium is actually one of those minerals that can be found in all security spaces at increasing amounts depending on the security. So you can mine this in high sec from Plagioclase, I think it is. Is that right? No, it's not right. Pyroxeres is what it is. And you get some Noxium at a decently low yield. But in nullsec wormhole space, you can actually grab more Noxium from better ores. And as a result, the rebalancing of the Rorcal could actually put Noxium under pressure by quite a little bit. This is something to keep in mind. If they go through their Zydrine and Megasite, the next victim is going to be Noxium. And so be very careful. This upswing here may be a bit premature. I think if the Rorcal comes out with a huge mining yield and it's used a lot to its max potential, it's inevitably going to suck up a lot of Noxium as well. And that is going to put Noxium under pressure. So I think we can look at this from that this is the new normal range for Noxium, and it may potentially go up on a war or something like that. Unfortunately, it's also in this bad position that it may go under pressure or go lower because of the changes to Gnostic mining, in this case the Rorcal. So be very careful on this upswing. I don't personally, I'm not moving on the Noxium market. It's just too difficult to read it well. You can see that this is going up, but I would personally have expected it to go under pressure, just like Zydrine for the Gnostic minerals. Here are the Gnostic minerals. This is Zydrine. Around June we had a high point at around 1290 ISK. You can see that we've been under pressure since then, and here at the tail end volumes are dropping off a little bit, but you can clearly see that the price is dropping off quite substantially as well, playing with 1000 ISK here. Median daily price of 957 ISK. This was, let's see, 2110 for 23.4 million units. So lower volumes, but very, very low price, less than 1000 ISK. That's pretty crazy. Here as well, 987 on the 22nd. Which is today. So this can still go up if something happens in the market, but we can clearly see that Zydrine is under pressure at the moment. 1016 ISK for the sellers, 905 ISK for the buyers. What does this mean? That we have an average price of like 957 and 987. It means that it's mostly sellers that are winning out. It's mostly people buying Zydrine for 1016 ISK, but some of the Zydrine is actually going to buyers as well at 905 ISK, which is pretty crazy. Very, very cheap Zydrine. But as we know, this is an Gnostic mineral, and with the Rorcal changes, this could actually be here to stay. So if you want to buy cheap Zydrine, it's the time to do so. But I would say have this backup plan ready. Be sure that you could use the Zydrine for manufacturing later on. At least that's how I'm doing my buying of minerals at the moment. So I am buying some Zydrine, I'm buying some Megasite, but I'm only doing so in numbers that I know I'll be able to use for manufacturing. I'm not dumping billions of ISK into these minerals because I'm seeing these at these low points because of the announced changes, of course. Next up, we've got Megasite, another Gnostic mineral. You can see the very same thing here. Probably Rorcal announcement, and we've been going down from 1284 to median daily price of 1027 ISK. Very, very low point yet again for Megasite. Clearly under pressure quite heavily. I actually bought a little bit of Megasite at the wrong time. I think around here, or maybe even at this point, 1260. Yeah, very likely. So it turns out it was at the wrong time, but as I've said, I didn't buy those as an investment. I bought those to have them ready for manufacturing. So I don't consider that a loss personally. But yes, this is of course the Rorcal change, very visible here on the Megasite chart. Sellers 1086 ISK, which is very close to Zydrine. Buyers are at 992 ISK, very low price, below 1000 ISK. Very cheap Megasite at the moment, of course. And these two charts, right, you can see Zydrine under pressure, you can see Megasite under pressure, is why I think Noxium is so weird. Noxium is actually going up when I think it should also be under pressure, just like the other two Gnostic minerals, because I think it's going to become the third casualty of the Rorcal changes. Next up, we've got Morphite, or finally I should say, we got Morphite, also clearly under pressure after the big boost of the Citadel expansion 6 months ago. The interesting thing is going to be the buyers are at 8,800 ISK, which is very cheap for Morphite. Sellers 9,243 is comparatively cheap as well. So I bought some of it below 10,000 ISK. Not exactly sure the price point because I've done several buys as the price went down. But I think for a longer term investment, this is also what Yves Prosper thinks. If you can buy close to 8,800 or 8,900 here on average is absolutely possible, then you are making probably a good investment, because if a war happens, a couple of Tech 2 fleets blow up, stuff like stealth bombers, interceptors become needed in large amounts, then more fight is set to go back up quite substantially, and you could get a really nice profit from that. But I would be patient and try to go for those buy orders. But 8,900, still a very good price, and judging from these average prices here, which are at 8,900, 8,984, it's not only the sellers that are dictating the price, people are actually selling to the buy orders as well. So it's an opportunity in more fight. The one thing is, you can't really say when it's going to change. You would need an Nullsec war, a pretty major one, for this to come back. But considering the entire chart here, including the 1 year chart, it's obvious that this is a pretty good position to grab some more fight, in my opinion. All right, after that, we've got some PI 2540. 2540. There we go. And let's not make too much noise. Okay, here we go. Construction blocks first. You can see still in a pretty strong position, completely opposite to most minerals. The PI has had a really strong summer. You can see that on the 1 year chart we've been well above average throughout the summer in the last few months, and here construction blocks in the last few weeks is actually adding to that. 14.68 thousand ISK, even a median daily price of more than 15,000 ISK. Pretty good to sell if you're producing this stuff. 15,275 for the sellers, 13,000 for the buyers. Strong price for construction blocks. Very nice to see. Consumer electronics next. This one knew a little bit of a dip at the end of September, with average prices of around 10,000 ISK. Was not that much anymore, although still not all that bad. If you look at the entire 1 year chart, you can see that we've been well below that. We were well below that a year ago, but again, very strong summer here, July, August, September, high points of around almost 17,000 ISK, and now we're coming back just a little bit, but 13,000 ISK, yeah, 13,000 ISK on average, you could say, here in the last few weeks. I would say is still okay to sell, but it's basically a normal price for consumer electronics. Maybe slightly strong considering the first part of the 1 year chart here, but overall still okay to sell, just not as good, I would say, of course, as construction blocks, which we just saw, is once again going for 6-month high points almost. Next up, we've got coolants. I think that could do really well considering it's fuel related. Nope, it's actually going back down a little bit, very substantially in fact, in the last few weeks. So here, once again, we can see it climbing through 6 months. That's pretty unusual. A couple of very nice bumps through the summer here with a high point of 15,000 ISK. But here at the tail end, we're basically going from 13,000 down towards 11,500 on average for coolants. Quite a bit of a knockdown. We can also see diminishing volumes. So sellers are at 12,150, buyers are at 11,300 if we disregard one buy order here. So it's pretty obvious here. Look at that, 87 days. That's a single person coming in. 85 days. Okay, quite strange. All of this is new supply in the last 2 weeks, and people have been selling their coolants like crazy, causing the price to go down quite substantially here all of a sudden. So it's still okay, right? It's still above average at around 13,500, but maybe it's closer to average at the moment here for coolants. So again, still okay to sell, but losing a bit of strength after the summer. Enriched uranium next. Again, we can see the very strong summer, in fact very strong September as well, with high points at 17,000 ISK, a little bit above that, and we settled back down, but we're still at 14, almost 15,000 ISK here on average in the last few weeks. I would say still a very strong position for enriched uranium. It's very visible as well on the 1 year chart here. So yeah, obviously pretty good to produce and to sell enriched uranium at the moment. Mechanical parts next, actually going to 6-month highs. Very interesting. Look at this huge volume spike, 3.61 million units being bought with a high point of 11,000. That's Oh, it's mechanical parts. I thought it was robotics, which is why I thought it should be a much higher price. But yeah, high point of 11,500 ISK. So it's definitely a good time to sell mechanical parts. The one difference is that apparently its baseline price is much different from what we've seen previously, right? Good price for coolants, consumer electronics, like 14, 15,000 ISK. Here, 11,000 ISK for mechanical parts is a pretty good price, but we are looking at 6-month high prices pretty much for mechanical parts. Very strong performer at the moment. 6 months, we've basically again been going up from 8,500 ISK to the current 11,000 ISK. Not bad at all. A couple of really big volume spikes. So it's pretty obvious that some people are speculating hard on mechanical parts, and I can't blame them here. We had a clear sharp drop towards a low point of 8,400 ISK. Big buy all of a sudden, shooting us back up, and we're actually still climbing here in the end. So it's looking really good for mechanical parts. Oxygen next. Again, very strong summer, losing a bit of strength in the last few weeks. This is the general picture that we're getting here, but still okay, probably a little bit above average at 480 ISK. So still okay to produce and sell. Definitely not a place where you want to invest in these just yet. Robotics next. Let's take a look at that. Again, we're pretty strong on the 1-year chart, incredibly strong in fact on the 1-year chart. Very strong summer as well, with high points of 110,000 ISK pretty much. Yeah, 110,000 ISK here. Currently selling for 98,000 ISK, almost 100,000, and you can see on the 1-year chart, strong position. You can sell these without any problem. I would not invest in them just yet. Rocket fuels next. A bit less pronounced here, so still pretty strong summer with some data points at 13,000 ISK, but it's not as visible on the 1-year chart as in most of the previous PI materials here. So definitely okay to sell, but if we go a lot lower here all of a sudden, if we reach, let's say, 10,000 ISK, you're actually seeing yourself in buy opportunities for rocket fuel, and the buyers are at 10,500, sellers are at 12,214 ISK. So there's a bit of margin here. Some extra rocket fuel supply could actually dump us back down quite quickly. So okay to sell, but we're pretty much on average for rocket fuels. Self-harmonizing power cores next. Definitely a different picture here. We can see a strong performance around the Citadel expansion, of course, because of the citadels themselves. Then we had to go back down quite a little bit to a low point of 1.9 million ISK. A little bit of hesitation here. Almost 3 million ISK, and here at the end here we're actually at a pretty high point, not as high as the Citadel expansion, but this is of course the engineering complexes coming through. People have to pay pretty much 3 million for a self-harmonizing power core, and you can see from the 1-year chart that before all of the Citadel hype, we were basically, well, we can take a quick look at that, we were basically easily buying these for around 2 or 1.8 million ISK even. Yeah. So this is of course the Citadel expansion coming through here, and here we have a bit of a repeat because of the engineering complexes, but as expected it's not as big of a jump up because the engineering complexes cost a lot less, people are more prepared, and we actually apparently are coming from a pretty strong PI summer anyways. So there you go, up a little bit, 3 million for the self-harmonizing power cores. It's unfortunate if you still need to buy for your engineering complex, but as I've said, the cost of these are much lower, and as a result these are still doable prices. We had some much crazier prices with the Citadel expansion. Next up we've got the supercomputers. Okay, very weird chart here. Something seems to be wrong with these null ISK data points here on some daily prices. So very flat 6-month chart if we're looking at the 5-day moving average mostly, and on the 1-year chart you can see that we're a bit above average, but honestly this chart just looks a little bit weird to me because of these data points. I'm not sure what exactly is happening. I could increase this, but all these median daily prices are above that, and then these are at 0. Very weird stuff. Maybe I should just get rid of that and move that to a different PI material that has a more normal chart. Superconductors next. There you go. That looks a lot better. Again, superconductors apparently used in citadels and stuff, because very strong citadel expansion up to 20,000 ISK. Then we recovered a little bit back to 11,700 ISK, so that is almost a halving of the price here, and up a little bit on the engineering complexes, but not by that much. So it's not as bad as a citadel expansion, but we're obviously in a pretty high price point for these superconductors. Test cultures next. Let's take a look at that. Test cultures, apparently also very strong citadel expansion with 16,000 ISK at its high point. Then trying to come back decently well in September, 9,800, and here again engineering complexes coming out almost 10,000 ISK for these. If you go for the 1 year chart, you can see that we are quite a bit above average, but this is all again citadel related, I think. Wetware mainframe next. What is this one looking like? Again, citadel expansion, 4.8 million, 5.15 million. Then at the low points, we recovered after that to 2.26 million, a little bit around that. And here again, a bit of a bump up due to the engineering complexes coming out 3 million for Wetware mainframes. It's again a bit higher, but still a very doable price. If I again go for the 1 year chart here, as you can see where we come from before the citadel expansion, 1.8 million to 2 million was a normal price for Wetware mainframes. So we've obviously had to pay the price of the citadel expansion. This is going to be 6 months. With a higher bottom here as well, but the engineering complexes, everyone knew that this was coming, so of course a lot of people have constantly been buying and preparing for this. They're just much more in the meta, you could say, at the moment, because of all of the new structures that CCP is developing. It's going to continue as well, because we will have drilling platforms, we will have some sort of propaganda towers possibly, and then we'll have stargates, which will again probably need a lot of this stuff. So at the moment, a bit of a bump due to the engineering complexes coming in 2 weeks. But other than that, very strong positions for PI at the moment in general. So it's okay to produce, definitely good to sell. But on speculation, it's very hard to find an opportunity to buy at the moment. All right, after this PI, let's move on to some Tech 1 chips. 3706, all right, it's actually pretty late, but all right. For the Tech 1 chips, I chose not to switch them out this week because I wanted to definitely take another look at the Thrasher, which was in like a very good buy opportunity in my opinion. So here we go, Blackbird, pretty flat at the tail end. This 6 month chart starting at less than 9 million, ending at 9.2 million. A bit of maybe natural inflation, although we've had in general is deflation through the summer because of inactivation of accounts mostly, but the net cash flow, the influx of ISK has been greater than the outflux in the last few months. So here we go, 9.3 million, not much to say really, pretty flat chart in general, except for one big dive down here to 7 million, which was then picked up by increased volumes to bring things back in line. Next up here we've got the Celestis, again slightly up chart but nothing too drastic. We start 6 months ago at 8.3 million, we end at 9.41 million for a cruiser, seems to be a pretty normal price. Couple of big volume spikes, I think this is E-War, so this could be Nosec related, but overall pretty flat, pretty normal Tech 1 chart. We've got the Coveter next, here we've got a, oh my god, look at that. Huge quantity bump, 200 coveters, average price 36.7 million. That must be more interesting here. 36.5 million supply coming in the last 24 hours, almost all of them. Buyers at 33.6 million, which is where on the chart? 33.6, it's gonna be around here. Yeah, obviously really big jump up due to a huge buy that happened 4 days ago. So coveters going up in price quite substantially all of a sudden. I'm not sure if someone bought like a coveter fleet or something like that, or if this is speculation, but if you can produce these, it's a good time, or sell these, it's a good time to bring them to the market. There is some volatility to be spotted in these mining barges here and there, with strong high points and strong volumes all of a sudden. So this is definitely Pretty unusual, more than twice the normal amount of coveters being bought all of a sudden, causing the price to increase drastically. But the good news is the industrial response is here right away, full front page already, including 40 and 10 coveters coming back to the market, is going to normally drop the price back down quite quickly as well. Next up, we've got the Cyclone. Also a pretty good show of force for stability here. Starts at around 44 million, ends at around 44 million. Pretty flat chart. One exception right here, big volume spike of 120. But again, this does get filled pretty decently quickly, matter of a week, 10 days for a battle cruiser, and then we're back on our averages. Dominic's next. Man, it's really good to have these 6-month charts back as standard, because I absolutely love them. So the Dominic's here lacks a little bit of volatility on the chart, so we may want to try and show that a bit more, although it's very tricky to do because it just wants to go down and down. So that's unfortunate, but alright, like this maybe. Starts at 200 million, ends at 190 million, so battleships have just not been in the meta, in fact under pressure a little bit as well. Volumes are abysmal, 30-40 on average a day for a Dominic's, which is also a PvE battleship of choice for level 4 missions. Really not good. High points are only at 220 million, so very flat and stable chart, and unfortunately on very low volumes. Availability is decent, but you can see that people come in with 1, 2, 3 Dominic's. Someone comes in with 9 of them, but it's more an exception to the rule here. So extremely bad time for battleships at the moment. Next up here we've got the Dragoon. That is an extremely flat chart, so we can maybe try to increase volatility a little bit like that. But yeah, the averages are basically around 1.27 million, up a little bit if you look at the 6-month chart, but it's very hard to notice. And abysmal volumes here, I would say. Yeah, look pretty damn low. 45.99. A spike is 300 Dragoons for this chart. It's pretty damn bad. No demand, no supply, extreme, well, some supply, but it's really not a lot. So the Dragoon is just not really being used that much at the moment. Next up, we've got the Merlin. That's a more interesting chart. Actually down for the 6 months, decently substantially. We're going from 430,000 ISK down to 280,000 ISK, actually 6-month low point. And Merlin, let's be honest, if there is one ship that alpha clones are likely to want to fly, it's gonna be a Merlin. It's still a pretty damn decent frigate, so this could be interesting if you want to buy a couple of Merlins. What's the availability looking like? Plenty of Merlins on the market, buy orders at 200,000 ISK. So yeah, Merlin 6-month low, decently stable, but obviously under pressure for 6 months straight. Next up, we've got the Prophecy. Come on, load the chart. There we go. That's okay, right? Flat from 55 million to around 58 million, but on average there is very little to say for the Prophecy. Pretty straightforward battlecruiser chart. Availability not great, 61 million for the sellers, but 52 million for the buyers. And considering the average prices here of around 56-58 million, you can actually buy Prophecies from the buy orders pretty easily at 53-54 million without too much effort. So looks definitely okay despite a small volume market yet again. Next up here we've got the Raven. A bit of volatility, I would say. 200 million and this is 180 million. That's a 10% jump and a 10% fall right here. But on average, we start at 180 million and we end at 180 million. Not much to say on this except for, yeah, pretty increase in price here, June, July. Then a really drastic drop. Again back on its average, and a momentary spike right here up to 200 million ISK. That was actually pretty short-lived as we went back down, but on average 180 million for the Raven. Availability decent. 35 of them coming in. It should help with a little bit of stability. 175 million for the buyers. Again, it is a PvE battleship, so it still has some volumes behind it, 50 on average, 40-50, just like with the Dominics, but it's still not a strong battleship market. Very weak in my opinion. Next up, the Thrasher. That was, I think, pretty interesting, as it was really dipping to an average of only 700. What is the million? That's not possible. 1 million, oh right, 700,000 ISK. But as you can see, people came in with more volumes, 816 of them bought, all of a sudden going back to the normal 1.15 million. So you had a small opportunity last week to buy Thrashers for less than a million. They're already selling back for 1.1 million, 800,000 still for the buyers. So if you want, you can still pick up some pretty cheap Thrashers, but I'm actually starting to feel like maybe these buy orders will be pushed up a little bit because of the increased price here. Well, actually, free supply, 124, 45, it's coming in. It's back on its average, but on a huge buy. So someone basically spotted the opportunity as well, came in and bought the cheap Thrashers, bringing them back in line. And is this a pattern that we're seeing again and again? No, we're actually never really dropping off as sharply as what we did there. In fact, we have a big spike here with a price spike up to 1.9 million. That was short-lived due to production. This was the opposite, basically demand dropping off into nothingness, providing you a great buy opportunity, but it didn't last very long either, unfortunately. And finally, we've got the Tristan Galente frigate. A little bit of volatility in the Tristan market, but again, we start at 510,000 ISK and we end at 470,000 ISK. So frigates under pressure a little bit lower again. Tristan, very popular PvE ship, PvP ship. It's going to be very popular with the alpha clones as well, I think. But not much to say here. Typical Tech 1 chart. Some volatility here and there, up to 780,000 ISK. But that again, very short-lived. We go back down very substantially all of a sudden. On average, 500,000 ISK for a Tristan, and we're right on that average. Not much to say here. Next up, Tech 2, 46.45. Okay, looking good. I'm still keeping to the Tech 2 market. I definitely want to do one with the 6-month chart repaired here. So here is the Basilisk going back down a little bit, but again, too little volatility in my opinion to actually buy and sell these actively at the moment. Sellers 195 million, 200 million actually if you disregard one sell order, 185 million for the buyers. So under pressure a little bit lately, but basically lacking in volatility in general. Broadsword next was actually pretty low and still decently low here, selling on average for 230 million ISK, 235 for the sellers, 220 for one buyer, 218 next to 16. Very little demand. I think if there is an investment you want to make, it's still looking like the broadsword market. Averages can go as low as 210 million, so 210, 220. You can probably pick up a couple of broadswords, but keep in mind that the volumes are also pretty low here. Cerberus next, that may be more interesting, but no, I thought maybe the Crimson Harvest may increase the price of the Cerberus. It did a little bit, but from 200 million to 210 million, hardly investment worthy. Yeah, very stable, 220 for the sellers, 203 for the buyers, and right in the middle of that is the chart. So you can sell, you can buy, and we're actually averaging right in between them. On the 1 year charts, we're decently good, but again, you can see that stability here in the last 6 months. It's just not good for trying to trade these. Next up, the Damnation, probably pretty high in price. This was due to the boosting changes announcement, of course. We went up to 410 million. Now 350 million, pretty high price for the Damnation at the moment, of course. So if you have some of those that you want to sell, then you can definitely do so. Yeah, again, much more stable here at the tail end. I don't think we'll be able to speculate on these anytime soon. How next? Let's take a look at that. Again, really much too flat. If you look at at the 1 year chart here, you can see how flat it is. And if I extend this just a little bit to include the war, then this is of course where you do make speculation money. If you can buy on average for 17 million and then sell for 28 million, then buy again for less than 20 million and again sell for 26, buy for 18.5 and sell for 28 million, all of that in the span of 4 months, then of course this is where you make money. Unfortunately, after the Citadel expansion in the last 6 months, it's just been way too flat. Next up, we've got the Kronos. That one knew a little bit of a high point at 1.5 billion. And look at that. 33 all of a sudden being bought. Pretty high quantity, meaning that the sellers should be, well, nope, 1.2 billion, 1.15 billion. Very small margin for such an expensive ship. Despite this volume change, we're actually going to stay right here in the 1.2 billion range. So, all right, Kronos, despite this blip in volumes, is not moving at all. Unfortunate. Next up here, we've got the Raptor, slowly going up in price over the last 6 months. But again, here was a nice price spike due to the war. But at least you had a little bit of volatility before that as well. This is basically flat. Not great for speculation. And here again we've got the Saber. The Saber was actually doing alright, I should say, after the Citadel expansion for volatility. 45 million to 52 million. It's still not great though. It's still not great. Back down to 46, back up to 55. This was one opportunity right here, one sell opportunity, but ever since then you can see the volatility decrease here, and we're now just averaging 48.5 million. And I wouldn't say that you should be able to, that you should start buying Sabers here for speculation, because honestly just doesn't look too good. It's still at a pretty high point from the 1 year chart. The Stork had a little bit of volatility. But this is messing up the chart because of the Stork being so new, of course, I think. If you go for the 6-month chart, a little bit of volatility here from 58 to 87 million, 88 million, that's definitely not bad. Again, from 60 million to 81 million, definitely pretty decent, but it was really the exception to the rule, and I think it is because it was a newer ship. Next up here, we get the Widow, and yeah. That's what's happening when you have something that doesn't exist for a year yet. It basically also resets by cutting back on the later part of this chart. Interesting. The Widow, actually a little bit of volatility in the Widow, but again the volumes here are 7.4, so it's very hard to actually make money on this. But we do have high points of 1.2 billion. 1.1 billion here, 1.08, and we're going back down after a very little spike here yet again. So yeah, Take-Two market not too hot. I'm still playing with the idea of changing this to like interesting ships, a mix of faction, Take-Two, and other stuff. But I basically need to do a bit more homework before I actually implement that. And then next up, Tech-3 could be more interesting. 53 minutes. Let's take a look at that. I thought that the Confessor might be in an interesting place last week, so let's take a look at that. Yeah, buy opportunity at 43 million. Unfortunately, it's already over. We're back at 46 million on higher volumes. So some people are probably following Eve Talk, and this was probably a pretty good buy to be able to buy some Confessors. The buyers though have gone up to 41 million, sellers at 46 million. So I'm pretty sure that people have bought close to 41, 42 million on this volume increase here, causing the Confessor to go back up in price a little bit, bringing it basically to 46 million for the sellers. Last 24 hours coming in, not that much anymore. So this is obviously going to stabilize the Confessor at a slightly higher price. The Hecate next. Basically also after the very low bottom in June, July, went back up, but stabilizing here as well at around an average price of 44, 45 million. Sellers are at 40, almost 46 million, and fresh supply, half a front page. So some fresh supply, but not too much to tank the price. Next up, we've got the jackdaw is what I wanted to show actually. Let's go for that one. Again, low point through the summer here, as low as 38 million, shooting back up at high point of 56 million, but now stabilizing 44, 45 million. Looks quite okay. Sellers are at 47.5, buyers are at 42 million. New supply coming in, not a lot yet, again, just around 40, 50 new jackdaws. So everything is basically stabilizing here in the Tech 3 destroyer market. The Zwepel was a little bit more interesting. I thought it would be under pressure, I think. Yeah, from 50 million down to 48.5 million, slightly under pressure. So we should see a lot of fresh supply coming in here. Yeah, full front page, probably 150 or so fresh Zwepels coming in. 48.6 million for the sellers, 45 million for the buyers. And the jackdaw was still at 47 million. Zwepel 48 million. So I still think that the Confessor and the Hecate are going to settle, maybe go up a little bit on the sell orders towards 46 million, which they're at already. Hecate sellers at 45.5, probably going to go up just a little bit, but they're all going to settle in the 45-46 million range. And it looks like supply is basically coming in line with demand, and all of this is settling down quite nicely. For the cruisers, let's take a look at that picture. These went up as well after the summer slump, up to almost 200 million, not bad, slumping down to 160, and now basically trying to settle in the 170-175 million range. 175 for the sellers, 168 for the buyers. Fresh supply, a bit more than half front page, probably 50 legions or something like that, looking okay, I think. Next up, we've got the Loki settling at 160 million, sellers 165, buyers 149. And what do we see? Less supply coming in, only 3 new ones in the last 24 hours. So it's pretty obvious that the Legion is set to go back down a little bit on extra supply. The Loki up a little bit. They'll probably meet at around 170 million. Next up, we've got the Proteus chart here. High point of 190 million, but under pressure, settling at 160 million. Yep, sellers had to go down to 164, buyers 159. New Protei, yeah, actually full front page, but as you can see, 16, 2, 2, 1. It's a little bit less in volume than the Legion, still putting some pressure maybe on the Proteus to go down towards 160, but here at the tail end you can also see that we're hesitating to go even lower. So I think it's looking all right. And next up we've got the Tengu, also stabilizing at 160 million. 164 for the sellers, 149 for the buyers. It's actually looking like they'll meet around 165 for the sellers for these Tech 3 cruisers. But after very low points, June and August here, of 140 across the board, you had some really good buy opportunities. There was some volatility to be spotted after that, probably on big buys. If we take a look at the Tengu, for instance, stuff like this, of course, when you're buying 300, 400 Tengus in a single day, causes the price to increase quite drastically. Probably Nullsec alliances that are buying up on the cheap prices. That meant that you had some great trade opportunities in between there, but all of this is settling down now. And one thing that could happen is, of course, a pretty major war could spark a lot of buying in the Tech 3 market, but don't expect any of them to crater down. It actually looks like there is enough demand that we're not in such an oversupply situation that you could see these very low points that we had in August and in June here, where you could basically buy at 6-month lows here. Look at that, 38 million for Confessors on the day. That was pretty damn good. Those days aren't coming back, but if you expect or you know that a big Nullsec war is coming that will involve Tech 3 ships, then buying at the moment could be quite alright, because there is a decent disparity between buyers and sellers, so you can probably try to pick some up on buy orders here as well. But just don't expect the bottom to be any lower than this. A war needs to happen for you to make money, but I'm not entirely sure. You know, the summer slump was a no-brainer. This is not a no-brainer because you're not sure of making money at the current prices. And then for the extra material, 59 minutes, I'm going to just touch on the gecko. It's been a long time since I checked this one, and I'm actually decently curious to see what it's been doing. So here we go. Gecko. It's of course considered the best drone in the game. You can't just make more of them, so these need to be basically put in the game as drops by CCP, and actually been decently stable in the last 6 months. So what we saw is that a while ago, right here, we had a pretty big slump. This was probably the carrier changes. Carriers used to be able to use drones, but all of a sudden they could only use fighters on their changes, and as a result, of course, demand for geckos dropped quite drastically. We went to a low point of 36 million even. Then on a bit of speculation we went up to 70 million. We settled down to 53, and now in the last 6 months or so actually, what you can see after the speculation is that we've slowly been going back up, which I think is coming in line with August, July, August, very little inflation in the game, so actually staying pretty stable, but here now at the tail end becoming a bit more interesting for investors and going up with inflation. So 50 million, 53 million on average in September, currently at 56 million. Volumes, well, yeah, they're being traded actively, almost 1,500, 600 a day is pretty easy. So if you want to try to pick some up, the buyers are at 53.5 million, sellers are at 57 million. It's a bit of a gamble, but the gecko is definitely one of those unique items in EVE Online that cannot be produced, and so every gecko lost is a gecko gone from the pool, and as a result a lot of people do like this as a store of value, because this should basically go up with inflation, and with every loss it should be, as long as CCP doesn't reintroduce more geckos to the game, this could be a really good investment for the longer term. And as you can see, sometimes people do speculate it up to 63, 64 million. We're just not getting a uniform picture from this just yet, because the carrier changes were just too recent, and the slump because of that has basically caused a bit of extra stability in the market. The lower usage is also going to lower the increase in price for the gecko as well. So this decrease in price here, unfortunate, but if you want in on cheap geckos, then I actually think that this is an okay time to do so. In fact, I may actually buy a couple myself, because these are really, really good drones, and in the right chips, this can be very, very good to actually just have and use. So don't go crazy, don't put all your money in one basket, but if you want in on something that could potentially go up, as long as CCP doesn't bring more geckos to the game, then this could be the right time to do so, in my opinion. Anyways, that's going to be it for this EVE Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.